Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast, taking care of business today with Phil Soper, president and CEO of Royal LePage. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Mario.
Well, let's talk about a report on investors in Canada that Royal LePage has out. What I found interesting, 11% of Canadians currently own an investment property, and that translates into, let's see here, 4.4 million people. I'm stunned by
Yes,
that number surprise
it's
you?
a big number, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? About a third of Canadians rent. And we've known for, over 30 years, most tax structures in the country, which are driven at the provincial level, haven't favored corporations building purpose-built rentals. So our landlords are entrepreneurs. They're small business people that might own one, they might own two, maybe they own as many as 10, but they don't own buildings. And they are the backbone of Canada's rental industry. And so I guess when I think about it in those terms, but when you think of over 4 million people owning a rental, then the number becomes a little amazing.
Yeah, it does become amazing. And 51% of those plan to purchase additional property in the next 5 years. What are the
Well,
conditions? Tell me, I guess.
I did find the number. I did find that number. And the fact that 24% of people, or 23 or 24%, call it a quarter of Canadians, would like to be a landlord. That's a huge number. I think it's very much in fashion right now. I mean, people listen to journalists like yourself. They know we have a critical housing shortage in the country. Yeah. They know we have record numbers of new Canadians, i.e. new people who have to put a roof over their families' heads. They know that rents are at all-time highs, that they've risen considerably faster than the underlying cost of living. And then there's the subtle things. Employment's really high. Savings are higher than normal. At 6%, they're almost 3 times the norm. So people have some cash. They have a job. And the stock markets themselves, equity markets, have been nasty places over the past year or so. So, and particularly in the tech sector, which I think would be more of interest to our younger investors in the country. So alternative investments have the shine's gone off them, and they are very much interested in real estate as an investment.
Now, I know you likely don't have these statistics, but what I'm curious about is the breakdown between, say, condos and single family homes and the percentages in those different categories of what people buy as investments. Investment
we actually
to rent out.
We do actually have those numbers. So just over 40%, 43 or 44% of the investment properties that Canadians currently own are single family homes. So that's surprising because only 33% are condos. The condos get a lot of the attention in the investment category because people buy new builds. They line up for them. Our big cities, we see them in the nightly news, the lineups for a new drop of, and there are a lot of investors in line. But in our secondary markets, if you're talking Medicine Hat or Fredericton or Vernon, BC, there's a lot more, a lot more of the housing stock is single family home. So on balance across the country, it is the favored investment class, not the condominium, but the single family home. About, what's the math? About 25% higher, more single family homes than condos overall. And I'll throw another little one that surprised me. A lot of little nuggets in this report. Only 3% of the investment properties were recreational properties. When we look at the recreational market, cabins, cottages, chalets, we often talk about people who will buy a property and use it as a rental property so they can work their way into actually affording it, sort of pay for it by renting it out. And yet it's only 3% of the rental stock in the country.
I'm just curious about that. I didn't realize that, but you have all these different places around the world, like the Mexicos, right, and places like that have timeshares and all that stuff. Why did that never really catch on here in Canada? Have a timeshare property that you purchase with a couple of other people in Canmore, for instance, or Whistler.
It's a small slice of the market. If you look at investors' desires, it's a small slice that say they like to use the property themselves. Less than 1 in 4 people are interested in buying an investment property and then getting some use of it out of themselves. I thought it would be a bigger number, but most people are looking at investment properties, just as the title says, as an investment, an alternative to traditional ways of saving for retirement.
So, Bill, if I'm a person that's thinking of dipping my feet into these waters, what should I consider? Like, what should be some of the things going through my head if I'm thinking, well, I want to buy an investment property to rent out?
Well, first of all, you've got to realize you're going to become a landlord. And it's not for the weak. I've been a landlord before. You unless you hire a professional management company to look after your property, that's going to be you. And you're going to get the phone calls in the middle of the night if, say, a pipe breaks or something like that. You're going to get the complaints, or even worse, you're going to get the tenant that damages your property. It takes off, and you're stuck with no revenue for a period of time before you can get the property back in the market and re-rent it. At least in this marketplace where the vacancy rates are so low, if it's a reasonable property in a good location, at least it's going to be back in the market. But it's not for the faint of heart. So that's point number one. Point number two, you need a business case. Should be less emotional and more business driven. Call it financial driven. If you go to a site like royallepage.ca, or there are others in the country that'll give you tools as a rookie investor to do some calculations on, can I afford to pay the mortgage with this much down and this property? What kind of expenses should I expect? What kind of rent should I expect for that region? And what do I need for contingencies? The unexpected. Say my property goes 2 months without a tenant, that sort of thing. Will that break me? You don't want to get into being a landlord if you can't, carry a property for a couple of months without someone paying me. So you need a business case. And I think the third piece of the puzzle is, it should be something that gives you joy and gets you excited. You're a business owner now. You've got a property, and maybe you're going to build that up. You're going to have a little bit of a portfolio. So if you feel a little fire in your belly for this, if this gets you excited, it may be the kind of investment that's right for you.
Okay, and speaking of timing of the investment, we always kind of jokingly say, when's a good time to buy real estate? And it's always now, right? But truly it is now, right? Isn't it?
Well, you know what? Prices are lower.
Yeah.
There's always a teeter-totter here. Prices are lower than they were at the peak, but they're rising again. But that right now there is somewhat of a window of opportunity. People are sitting on more cash. Rents are higher. That'll be your revenue as an investor. The other side of the equation are interest rates are higher. So your carrying cost, your number one cost, is the cost of borrowing. For most people, don't buy investment properties for cash because that's an expense. And you have a business, you can write expenses off against your taxes. So for most people, if you're an investor, you want to carry the debt on your investment properties, not on your principal residence, for example. So it is attracting more people. And as we talked about earlier, other forms of investment it's been a rocky time for them. So this has risen in prominence right now. I think investors should think in this sector should think longer term. Some people think about it as a shorter term investment. They're going to get into the property, they're going to renovate it, and then they're going to sell it. I believe a better strategy in this sector, if it's for you, is treat it like a business and build yourself a 5-year plan. Look at it, make some modest calculations, or think about what the market might do over 5 years. And you can use, again, resources like the ones we provide to give you, a professional view of where the market's going over time, and build a business plan. It's not hard. Lots of resources help you there, and say, I'm going to be in this for, call it a minimum of 3 years. But maybe it's something you're going to do through your whole life until retirement, and maybe afterwards. Maybe you expect a portfolio of properties is an alternative to your RSP in providing you income in your retirement. A lot of people think about things that way versus short term. And I don't like flippers. We don't encourage house flippers. Someone who buys something like a stock and wants to flip it without investing anything in it, they do cause prices to rise uncomfortably. They can get caught in a change in the market. Either rates go up or prices go down. They can get hurt personally, and they're not good for Canadians' housing overall. So just say no to flippers.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Phil, for joining us today.
My pleasure. You take care.
Okay, that was Phil Soper, who is President and CEO of Royal LePage. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's podcast, Taking Care of Business Today. Thanks for joining us.